Hi dear students, in the last class we started activity planning. In activity planning we mainly discussed about the introduction of activity planning, what is meant by activity planning, why it is important. Then about the objectives of activity planning, what are the main major objectives such as feasibility assessment, resource allocation, etc. And also when to plan. In the current class, in this slide, we are mainly discussing about the project schedules. Before work commences on a project or a stage of a larger project, the project plan must be developed to the level of showing dates when each activity should start and finish, and when and how much of each resources will be required. Once the plan has been refined to this level of detail, we call it a project schedule. Creating a project schedule consists four major stages. The first step in producing the plan is to decide what activities need to be carried out and in what order they are to be done. From this, we can construct an ideal activity plan. Ideal activity plan means a plan of when each activity would ideally be undertaken, where resources not a constraint. The ideal activity plan will be then subjected to activity risk analysis. The aim of activity risk analysis is to identify potential problems. This analysis might suggest alterations to the ideal activity plan and will almost certainly have implications for resource allocation. The third step is resource allocation. The expected availability of resources might place constraints on when certain activities can be carried out. Our ideal plan might need to be adapted to take account of this. The final step is schedule production. Once resources have been allocated to each activity, we will be in a position to draw up and publish a project schedule. This indicates planned start date and planned completion date, as well as the resource requirement statement for each activity. In project management, activities characterize the measure of work that changes over a plan for appropriate outcomes. Activities in a project are the method to identify and document the activities that are accessible to produce the project deliverables. Before we try to identify the activities that make up a project, it is worth reviewing what we mean by a project and its activities and adding some assumptions that will be relevant when we start to produce an activity plan. Activities must be defined so that they meet these criteria. Any activity that does not meet these criteria must be redefined. The first one is a project is composed of a number of interrelated activities. The next one, a project may start when at least one of its activities is ready to start. Then third criteria, while defining activities, a project will be completed when all of the activities have completed. An activity must have a clearly defined start and a clearly defined end point, normally marked by the production of a tangible deliverable. If an activity requires a resource, then that resource requirement must be forecastable and it is assumed to be required at a constant level throughout the duration of the activity. The duration of an activity must be forecastable, assuming normal circumstances and the reasonable availability of resources. Some activities might require that other activities are completed before they can begin. These activities or these are known as precedence requirements or precedence activities. Essentially, there are three approaches to identifying the activities or tasks that make up a project. The first one is the activity-based approach. The second approach to identify the activity is the product-based approach. And the third one is the hybrid approach. The activity-based approach consists of creating a list of all the activities that the project is thought to involve. This might require a brainstorming session involving the whole project team, or it might stem from an analysis of similar past projects. When listing activities, particularly for a large project, it might be helpful to subdivide the project into the main life cycle stages and consider each of these stages separately. create a work breakdown structure. It involves identifying the main or high-level tasks required to complete a project and then breaking each of these down into a set of lower level tasks. In this diagram, it is a fragment of a work breakdown structure where the design task has been broken down into three tasks: data design, process design, and physical design. And data design, one of these, data design, has been further decomposed into relational data analysis and logical data analysis. Relational data analysis and logical data analysis. Activities are added to a branch in the structure if they contribute directly to the task immediately above. If they do not contribute to the parent task, then they should not be added to that branch. The task at each level in any branch should include everything that is required to complete the task at the higher level. While preparing a work breakdown structure, consideration must be given to the final level of detail or depth of the structure. To greater depth will result in a larger number of small tasks that will be difficult to manage. However, each branch should be broken down at least to a level where each leaf may be assigned to an individual or a responsible section within the organization. A work breakdown structure also represents a structure that may be refined as the project proceeds. In the early part of a project, we might use a relatively high level or a shallow work breakdown structure, which can be developed as information becomes available, typically during the project's analysis and specification phases. Once the project's activities have been identified, they need to be sequenced in the sense of deciding which activities need to be completed before others can start. Then next, the product-based approach. The product-based approach consists of producing a product breakdown structure and a product flow diagram. The product flow diagram indicates for each product which other products are required as inputs. The product flow diagram can therefore be easily transformed into an ordered list of activities by identifying the transformations that turn some products into others. Proponents of this approach claim that it is less likely that a product will be left out of a PBS, product breakdown structure, than that an activity might be omitted from an unstructured activity list. The product-based approach is particularly appropriate if using a methodology such as SSADM, Structured System Analysis and Design Method, or Unified Software Development Process. It clearly specifies that for each step or task, each of the products required and the activities required to produce, it is clearly stated. For example, the SSADM reference manual provides a set of generic product breakdown structures for each stage in SSADM, which can be used as a basis for generating a project-specific project breakdown structure. In the Unified Software Development Process, the products are referred to as artifacts, and the sequence of activities needed to create them is called a workflow. Some caution is needed in representing an activity network, and also Unified Software Development Process emphasizes that processes are iterative. This means that it may not be possible to map a unified software development process directly onto a single activity in a network. All projects, whether they contain iterations or not, will need to have some fixed milestones or time boxes if progress towards a planned delivery date is to be maintained. These larger activities with fixed completion dates would be the basis of the activity network. The hybrid approach is the combination of the above activity-based approach and the product-based approach. In a project of any size, it would be beneficial to introduce additional levels, structuring both products and activities. The degree to which the structuring is product-based or activity-based might be influenced by the nature of the project and the particular development method adopted. As with a purely activity-based work breakdown structure, having identified the activities, we are then left with the task of sequencing them. A framework dictating the number of levels and the nature of each level in the structure may be imposed on a work breakdown structure. Sequencing and scheduling activities. Throughout a project, we will require a schedule that clearly indicates when each of the project's activities is planned to occur and what resources it will need. One way of presenting such a plan is to use a bar chart, A project plan can be represented as a bar chart. The bar chart does not show why certain decisions have been made. One way of presenting an activity plan is to use a bar chart. The chart is shown in the figure. It is drawn up taking account of the nature of the development processes. That is, certain tasks must be completed before others may start, and the resources that are available. Here, for example, activity C follows activity B because Andy cannot work on both tasks at the same time. In drawing up the chart, we have therefore done two things. We have sequenced the task, that is, identified the dependencies among activities dictated by the development process and scheduled them, that is, specified when they should take place. The scheduling has had to take account of the availability of staff and the ways in which the activities have been allocated to them. The schedule might look quite different where there are different number of staff or where we to allocate the activities differently. In the case of small projects, this combined sequencing scheduling approach might be quite suitable, particularly where we wish to allocate individuals to particular tasks at an early planning stage. However, on larger projects, it is better to separate out these two activities, to sequence the tasks according to their logical relationships, and then to schedule them taking into account resources and other factors. Today in this session, we discussed about three topics in activity plan: project schedules, then projects and activities, how to define activities and how to identify activities. Then the last section was sequencing and scheduling activities. Thank you.